we must stand up and understand the battle we're in. Speak to that.
Yeah, well, it is. It's been a spiritual battle. But one thing we also have to remember, we're in the middle, in the spirit that is going to manifest in the natural, of a turning point or a shift change. What do I mean? Exodus 8, you could see the narrative. When it looked like the magicians who operated with the satanic could emulate and do everything that God was doing through Moses and Aaron, until something shifted. It was the finger of God. It was the God factor that inserted himself and caused everything to shift to where the occult and the spiritual warfare, they said, we cannot do this. In other words, their power was restrained and neutralized. And this is what is going to continue in America, but also Texas. God said a righteous rebellion would come upon the United States of America. And I'm telling you, what we're seeing with your guest tonight is part of that righteous rebellion. It's not just the people. It's those who will rise up and rebel against the darkness and the evil, who will stand for righteousness. And Texas shall be a prototype in this nation for what God is going to do through our government, legislation, and
well, I made 8, so I'm not sure where the other, 7 went. So, Gene, I don't know how to answer that, so I came up with a dumb answer, okay?
That was good, though. I appreciate that, because it's a dumb question. It's a dumb question.
All right, it was a dumb question. And people think that my answer was dumb just like they thought her answer was dumb. That was the point of my dumb answer.
No, you're good. All right.
No, Gene,
yes.
remember the time when Trump was running? And this is my favorite moment, because they took out, what's his name? He ran earlier. So they said, Donald Trump is a billionaire, and they set his net worth at like $4 billion. And in Forbes magazine, and Romney ran, and he was backing up from him being a wealthy man. Trump goes and grabs the microphone and says, Forbes is completely dishonest. I have a lot more money than that. The Trump brand alone has me at $8 billion to $12 billion. And everybody laughed, because it was the exact opposite. And the truth is, if you make your money legally, I think Trump has changed the game to say, you know what? I came out of the private sector because I do real good. I'm tired of my friends getting ripped off. I know how they play the game. I know how to make money. I know how to save money. I'm going to help you all get rich, and we're going to deal with this swamp. That actually is a great Republican line.
It is. However, her making money was not exactly legal. And that's why she's...
Well, yes,
right.
Her making money was illegal, and the fact that she didn't know about it, and it's like, Newsmax, it's like, yeah, Newsmax, and she doesn't remember. Wow.
Yeah, that's bizarre. All right. Well, I might as well go around the horn. Pastor Jurgen, do you have like $7 million you don't know where, if you made or not?
Yeah, I mean, I'd certainly know where it was, and if I didn't, my wife certainly would. But yeah, it's becoming more and more exposed. The insider trading, the illegal rackets run by the left, and you only have to look at when they entered the political environment to where they are now, how much their stock, how much their net worth has risen. And you look at the righteous, people like Donald Trump, who went in at their own expense, gives his salary away. But the left are not like that. They are literal grifters and hypocrites. So I'm glad she's getting called out, and I'm glad that she's got a warrior that she's running against, because the race looks like in New Jersey moving away from her towards the righteous, and we've got to just make sure we keep praying for that.
Yeah, amen. And so listen, if you live in New Jersey, and we've got a lot of people live in New York and New Jersey. So New Jersey, come on. If you haven't voted, make sure you vote November 4th for the right person. Get the word out. If you know somebody in New Jersey, make sure they're voting and getting the word out. Chittarelli is moving in the right direction. He's within the margin of error now. So depending on which poll you listen to or look at. And let me say this about polls. Lance, well, no, I'll go to Chrisanne. Chrisanne, do you remember when Trump was running against Hillary Clinton, the day of the election, they said 95 Clinton, 5 Trump, and he won 2016. This is why we can't listen to polls.
Well, there's a saying, statistics don't lie, but liars use statistics. And that's what we have to understand. Polls are not a truth-telling mechanism. They're actually a bias propaganda controlling mechanism, because you see, you can buy what you're doing is paying a company to craft a question to elicit the response that you want, that you're paying to get. So polls are actually very artistically crafted and articulately crafted to give the answer that the person is paying that wants to hear.
Yeah, without a doubt. In fact, let me give you an example. We could talk about the Second Amendment and gun ownership. You could see a poll that says absolutely, 95% against gun ownership. Then if you drill down, and they actually do publish the results, which they should always publish the source and how many people were polled, they'll say, oh, they polled 1,200 people in Boston versus a poll in Dallas or Fort Worth, Texas, or Houston, where you're going to get two totally different results. Now, they always, and I am amazed, Lance, I'll go to you. I'm amazed at what should be good journalism with these news agencies that will put out programmers that will put out polls and not tell you who did the poll, the margin of error. You should always be able to drill down and see all the data on the poll. That's called good journalism, and we're just not seeing it in the media today.
All right, Gene, we've been getting sophisticated because as Christians, we came into this thing when Obama became president, I began to read stuff from Dinesh D'Souza, and I got educated to the fact that politics is a lot more dangerous, a cultural formation thing than I thought. And then by the time that Donald Trump came along, I was all in. I got it. Now, Trump is in the midst of a counter-revolution, seizing all 7 mountains. If you look at it that way, he's reclaiming all those domains. I'm saying that because we've gotten smarter as we've gone along. And I exhort our Flashpoint audience, listen to almost no polling data. They're paid for by sources that want the bias. They're designed to manipulate public perception.
That's right. And
the difference there would be Rasmussen has a guy called the Honest Poller who's on a lot. A guy named Seth Ketchel. He's called Captain Ketchel. You can get him on Substack. These are the people who are honest. One of them I know personally, Seth, and they will tell you the raw facts. You need to avoid the rest of it because it's as bad as the New York Times.
Yeah, without doubt. But yeah, it's a good point. We need to call Captain Seth and have him back on here to give us an idea of what's going on. Let's go to Virginia. Eric Doherty posts this. Breaking: the Virginia Attorney General's race has officially flipped in favor of the Republicans. Watch. No, it's just a tweet. Don't watch. Read along with me. It was exposed. Jay Jones wants conservatives and their children dead. Jason Miyares is up 2.4 points over Democrat Jay Jones. 6-point lead flipped. Winsome still trails Abigail Spanberger. Republicans must turn out. I think the AG has the best shot at going red. All right, so this is an opportunity here where we can either sit back on our laurels and go, hey, we got this thing wrapped up. We got the AG race because of Jay Jones wanting to do horrific things to his opponent's kids. Or we can keep pushing the pedal forward. And Pastor Hank, I'll let you talk about this. We must not back down in what we're doing.
No, I think where we're at in our country is when Moses had to go to the people and in Numbers 32, and he said, why do you sit here while the rest of us are going to war? And then he said, why do you discourage the hearts of the people? So I know people today, Gene, sadly, since Trump has been in office, you talk to them, and they somehow think that everything is just going to kind of fix itself. Well, no, they're choosing to sit it out. If there's ever a time to engage in battle, it is now. We cannot let up, not 1 inch. And here's what I feel. I feel like we're in a window. Judges 3, the people cried out for a deliverer. And the Bible says in Judges 3 that God heard, and he raised up King Othniel, who had a likeness unto the Lord, that did what was right. But the people slipped back after 40 years and began to do evil again. We cannot have that in our country. And I just want to say this last thing. Here's what we have to remember is look at the No Kings rally. And they talk about the great numbers that showed up. Really? Compared to the number of people in America, it is a small percentage. And that is the same thing that really is happening in our country. Most Americans do not believe in the liberal lunacy way. That's why we have to get out, be a voice, and let it reflect with our votes.
Without a doubt. Let me show you this. Pastor Jurgen, let you see it. Winsome Sears post. We've lowered taxes, spent responsibly, and kept government living within its means. Now Virginia's leading the nation with record revenues and 10,000 new jobs in 2 months. So you look at the little graph in the bottom right-hand corner. September revenues up 9.8%. Year-to-date revenues 7.9%. This is a statistic. This is not a poll, but it shows you what happens when the right people are in the right places. Pastor Jurgen.
Yeah, Proverbs 29 verse 2 says that when the righteous are in authority, the people rejoice. When the wicked rule, the people groan. And, you know, what we see over and over again is that the left traffics in anarchy, in chaos to get their way and then blame and smear. And they love psyops. Like even when we're talking about, you know, the No Kings crowds that turned out, well, if the crowds were so big, why did they have to Photoshop? And then why did they have to draw from footage from 2017 in Boston? Because the crowds didn't turn up. They know momentum's not on their side. Why do they use these polls or quote these polls? Because it's a psychological warfare. They know that there is a margin of 5 to 12% of people who are undecided. And nobody likes to back a losing horse, or nobody likes to board a sinking ship. So they bring these things out as warfare. And unfortunately, the righteous, the right, have sat back and allowed the left to dominate. They feed it all to the false prophets, the fake news media who run with it. And that's how they've been able to stay in power. But thank God Trump is our Elijah, because he's calling out fake news. He's calling out false prophets, and he's demanding truth and integrity in our elections.
Yeah, without a doubt. All right, Chrisanne, look at this clip. This is Speaker Johnson talking about the Democrat Party. Get you to comment. Watch.
They are ending what has always been known as the Democrat Party in America. After a months-long pressure campaign from the far left, House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries finally relented. He gave in, and he gave his endorsement to the socialist running to be mayor of New York City. The House Democrats have chosen a side. They were forced to by that far left that they're so terrified of, and they've shown the world what they really believe. There is no longer a place for centrists and moderates in their party. The candidate that they have endorsed, Mamdani, is somebody who we've talked about a lot from this podium. He's sympathized with Hamas and openly embraced anti-Semitic language. He has called to, quote, seize the means of production because he is a Marxist. He's called to abolish our borders, to abolish and end immigration enforcement, to defund the police, and to legalize prostitution, among a long list of hits that I could share with you. Zoran Mamdani is expected to take the helm of one of the most important cities in the world and the largest city in America. And he now has the full blessing of the Democrat leader in the House of Representatives. It is shocking. And that leader and all the other Democrats are going to co-own the consequences of what they do to America's largest city.
All right, Chrisanne, your thoughts.
Well, we've been heading this way for a while in the Democrat Party. We've seen the far left optics, the ideological shift, and it's left the leadership in the Democratic Party with a conundrum. The interesting thing is, what I think we're seeing is the retaliation of the American people against what has been driven down their throat by all of the alphabet letter media outlets who want Americans to believe that this far leftist ideology is the majority, is the future of America. The reality is the future of America is in constitutionalism. It's in liberty. It's in godly principles. And the American population is beginning to really understand that. We see revivals across America like we've never seen before. We see revivals in the young people, in the colleges, in the very bastions of these liberal propaganda enclaves. And what this really, really is are the American people getting tired of being told who they need to be, what they should be, and what the media wants us to be. And we're standing up and saying, whoa, wait a minute. We're American. This is not who we are. This is not how we started. This is not who we want to be. And we are going to be the America we were founded to be. We're going to stick with godly principles, and we're not going to accept the narrative anymore.
Yeah, he was great. I love that. Yeah, we need to not accept the narrative. You know, Lance, remember 2016, we talked about that 11% that's in the middle. It used to be that's every presidential election, we talked about the ultra right, the ultra left. You're not going to swing them. You want that 11% that's in the middle that doesn't know which way to vote. But we don't have that 11% anymore. They're either crazy left or hard right. And so we've got an issue coming up with exactly what we're saying. And New York is a great, Mamdani is a great example of exactly this, where you've got not just left, what he's taken with Hakeem Jeffries, the whole Democrat Party is saying, we want someone that stands for Islam to take over the largest city in America.
You know, I'm going to make a statement that's kind of wild, but I'm beginning to believe this more and more because I look at the data the pollsters are giving us. You know, Trump is on the 80-20, 70-30 margin. He's picking all the issues, including Americans don't want Marxism. They all want to participate. They don't want the government to tell them how much they can make. The Americans do want secure borders, et cetera. So that leads me to a conclusion. These pockets of blue, Gene, where we look at it and we think we got 11%. Tom Fenton just did a great message there on X, and he's got, you know, a couple of other, he was on War Room yesterday. He has stopped 5 million fake votes that are on the rolls from illegals. We got like 20 million illegals. Do you know how many of them actually are able to vote? He believes there's another 10 million of people that are illegal that can actually vote in the United States. And the places where this can be the strongest is those blue patches. There's your Seattle, your Portland, your Los Angeles, your New York. And I'm going to say this, where you see the concentration of people voting in these Marxists, you probably have corruption in the electoral process. But it's like Doge. They set fire to Elon Musk dealerships. He backed out. You didn't see Donald Trump say, let's go at it again, boys. He knows what's in there. There's a fight getting at that that money. And I think the same thing is true with election integrity. Nobody, Pam Bondi, Cash, no one's taking the fight to where the fake votes are. And that has me more concerned now than it used to, because I don't think America's voting in the crazies. I think the corrupt party's putting themselves in office.
Yeah, I agree. So why are they not taking this on? That's my question. Why is this not being handled?
I think the institutional power of Washington, and look at it from a spiritual perspective. You know, you can be really bold when you're sitting there talking in your church, and then you get around another environment, and you feel a little smaller, and you don't know if you fit in, and everybody looks at you like you really don't belong there, and you start, unless you have a real anointing, you start to conform to the pressure, like Paul said.
Oh, sure.
But you start to conform. What happens up there in D.C., thank God for Donald Trump, because he cracks the whip with these guys. He says, go after him, go after him, go after him, and they go after him. But if Trump doesn't say deal with it, then what they do is they go for low-hanging fruit. And you're seeing a criminal cartel or a child sex trafficking ring, and you're going, hey, what happened to Brennan and Clapper and Comey? What happened to Obama? What happened to all that? That stuff's kind of aging out because the environment is not conducive to taking on the big principalities.
That's so sad. Pastor Hank, your thoughts?
Well, Lance I think he just absolutely nailed what's happening and explains the spiritual battle over our country. But I do want to say something to Lance's point that I think is something that every one of us needs to remember. You know, oftentimes you hear, and of course the fake news, you know, will push for it, and they make it sound like there's this mass majority and America is so divided. Well, if there is a division, it's because people are rising up, and it's 1 Kings 18:21. It's because there are two opinions. It's not that it's 50-50 in the United States of America, that you have 50% of your population that is this loony, twisted, wanting this kind of stuff for our children or for our present moment. I don't believe that. I believe it's caught between two opinions. The opinions are good versus evil, light versus darkness, sanity versus insanity. It's really that easy. And I really believe, to Lance's point, there has to be a prayer movement that begins to really hit these strongholds that are in Washington, D.C., but really over our country, so that people will not be bound with this deception that causes them sometimes to do very little or to feel fear to do something. And I believe that that is really the key if we're going to continue to see election integrity where it really needs to be in our country. Well, I think America right now is in, like with Joshua, when it was time to take the promised land, okay? Trump is our president. People are saying, hey, we're in the promised land. However, remember, there were two cities they had to fight against. Number one was Jericho with walls and shut-ins or shutdowns, correct, right? And the second one was AI. And it wasn't that AI, the city, was bad. It was God said, don't connect AI with the corrupt thing. And I think that's what God is getting ready to judge very harshly, is this that people are using with AI. But, Gene, I want to say this last thing before the close of the show. I think Kamala Harris ought to have a female ticket. Her and ACROC need to join together, president, vice president on the ticket, with Bernie Sanders, Secretary of Socialistic States of the United States of America. Okay? That's what I think.
Okay. All right. I'll give you 30 seconds, Chris Ann. Try and remedy that one.
Yeah, I don't know how we can remedy that, but the reality is what we're watching is the restoration and the return of real American principles. And as you said before, this is not the time for us to sit back and watch. It's a time for us to be a part of the change. We, as the leaders of America, have to stop looking for leaders and start being them. And today is the day, and now is the time.
All right, Lance, you got 15 seconds. Do it.
Donald Trump, Gene, while we've been talking about these races, has been wrapping up trade deals for rare earth minerals all throughout the Asia-Pacific Rim. He's kind of on his way to China, showing them all the deals he's doing in their backyard, all part of him